I never thought a piece of paper could make the world tilt under my feet. But it did. It was a rainy Tuesday morning, the kind that soaks into your bones and makes the whole world feel a little heavier. I came downstairs, bleary-eyed and barefoot, and there it was, an envelope on our kitchen table. It hadn't been there last night. No stamp. No return address. Just our name, the Thompsons, written in shaky cursive across the front. At first, I figured it was some local church invite or maybe something from the HOA. I almost tossed it. God, I wish I had. But I didn't. I opened it. Inside was a single page, folded twice. I started reading, and the coffee I had just poured went cold in my hand. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Thompson. My name is Laura Bennett. I am the biological mother of your adopted son, Michael. I have been searching for him for many years. I recently learned where he is. I would like the chance to meet him. I understand if this is difficult. Sincerely, Laura Bennett. I reread it 3 times before I sat down. My knees actually gave out, not metaphorically. I sat down hard on the cold tile floor like I was 80 years old. The edges of the letter trembled in my hands. Michael. Our son. We adopted him 13 years ago, when he was 5. And now, suddenly, his biological mother was back. After all these years. After all we'd built. I didn't know what to think. The thoughts in my head were racing in every direction. Why now? Why us? What did she want? I heard Sarah upstairs, moving around. She didn't know yet. I didn't even know how to tell her. I looked at the letter again. That name, Laura Bennett, it didn't ring any bells. The adoption agency had never shared her name with us. Everything had been closed, private. That was the deal. We wanted it that way. We needed to believe that once we signed those papers, we could just start fresh. We had built a life around that belief. But I knew one thing for sure, this letter was going to change everything. You need to understand something. Sarah and I, we didn't just choose adoption like you pick something off a menu. We arrived at that decision after years of heartbreak, procedures, invasive questions, hormonal shots, tears in cold doctors' offices. Sarah had 3 miscarriages. The last one nearly killed her. After that, we stopped trying. Not because we didn't want a child, we wanted one more than anything, but because we couldn't bear the idea of losing again. The silence in our house had become unbearable. A quiet war zone of what-ifs. And then, there was Michael. We met him at a foster care event. I remember how small he looked, standing off to the side while other kids ran and played. He had a quiet way about him, cautious but curious, like he was measuring the world before stepping into it. He had these big, solemn brown eyes that seemed too old for his face. When he finally looked up at me and smiled, just barely, I felt something crack open in my chest. I still remember the moment Sarah knelt down in front of him and asked if he liked dogs. He said, "Only if they don't bite." She laughed. It was the first time I'd seen her really laugh in months. That's the boy we brought home. Michael became our world. And now, this letter. I heard Sarah's footsteps on the stairs, and I knew I couldn't keep it from her. We didn't keep secrets in our house, and I wasn't about to start now. But I also didn't know how to break something so fragile. When she entered the kitchen, I just handed her the letter. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. She read it in silence. Her lips moved slightly as she did, like she was reading it out loud in her mind. When she was done, she looked at me with eyes full of confusion and fear. "Do you think it's real?" she asked. "I don't know," I said. "It looks real. Sounds real." She sat down across from me, folded her hands on the table like she was bracing for impact. "What are we supposed to do?" "I think we have to tell Michael." Sarah nodded slowly, but I saw the panic in her eyes. "He's going to want to meet her." "I know." The room went silent. The rain outside sounded louder, angrier. "You think she wants him back?" she asked suddenly, her voice a little too sharp. "No," I said, maybe a little too quickly. "That's not how this works. He's 18 in a few days. He's legally an adult. No one can take him back. But emotionally, Sarah whispered. What if she wants to be his mother again? I had no answer for that. And deep down, a part of me feared the same thing. We told Michael that evening. He was in his room, playing guitar. He taught himself when he was 10 and never stopped. Music had always been his therapy. He was sensitive, thoughtful, the kind of kid who felt things deeply but didn't always know how to say them. When we knocked and walked in, he looked up and smiled. Hey. What's up? I sat on the edge of his bed, Sarah beside me, and handed him the letter. He read it slowly, just like we had. His face didn't give much away. Then he looked at us. She found me. We don't know how, Sarah said softly. But yes. He stared at the floor. I always wondered, you know, what she looked like. Why she gave me up. If she ever thought about me. His voice cracked on the last sentence. I reached over and squeezed his shoulder. You don't have to meet her, I said. This is your choice. But even as I said it, I knew what his choice would be. He looked up, and there was something in his eyes, resolve, maybe. I want to meet her. The night after Michael read the letter, the house felt different. Like we were all holding our breath. Nothing looked out of place, but everything had changed. The air felt charged, the way it does before a thunderstorm. Michael didn't say much that night. He just folded the letter and put it in the drawer of his nightstand, next to the old flashlight he used to be scared to sleep without, and the pocketknife I gave him when he turned 13. That was Michael. He held on to things. Even pain. Sarah and I lay in bed in silence for a long time. I could feel her fingers twitching against the sheet beside me. She was thinking 1,000 thoughts at once, I could tell. And so was I. Do you think she's stable? Sarah asked eventually. Her voice was quiet, but sharp. I don't know, I said. We don't know anything about her. What if she tries to convince him we were wrong for keeping him from her all these years? What if she fills his head with things that aren't true? He's smart, I said, though part of me was trying to convince myself too. He knows we've always been honest with him. Sarah turned toward me, her face barely lit by the moonlight sneaking through the window. But what if the truth isn't enough anymore? I didn't have an answer. I wrapped my arm around her and held her close, listening to her breathing until she finally drifted off. But I didn't sleep that night. My mind was back at the day we met Michael for the first time. It was a warm spring afternoon. We'd been invited to a family day event at the Foster Center. It sounded so cheerful, so full of possibility. In reality, it was heartbreaking. Dozens of children, some laughing too loud, some sitting silently in corners, playing games and pretending not to notice the adults watching, judging, choosing. It felt wrong, like picking apples at a farmer's market. But then there was Michael. He wasn't playing. He was sitting alone at a plastic table, drawing. I remember walking over, not even sure why, and seeing what he was sketching, a tree, with a swing hanging from one of the branches. There was one small figure on the swing. Just one. Is that you? I asked. He looked up at me, eyes dark and cautious, and nodded. Looks peaceful, I said. But kind of lonely too. He shrugged. Sarah came over a moment later. She kneeled down and smiled at him. What's your name? Michael. You like swings, Michael. He nodded. But sometimes they squeak too loud. We laughed. It was such a small, honest thing to say. But it was the first moment we saw who he really was. Sensitive. Observant. Not just a kid trying to get adopted, he was a boy who had learned to watch the world from a distance. That broke our hearts. And we wanted to be the ones to bring him back in. 2 weeks after receiving the letter, Michael asked us to help arrange the meeting. She said she wants to meet me, he told us, sitting at the kitchen table. But I don't want to go alone. He didn't look at us as he said it, but he didn't have to. We knew what he was asking. He wanted us there, not as shields, not as obstacles, but as parents. Still his parents. Sarah's hand found mine under the table. I gave her a slight nod. Of course, I said. We'll be there. He looked relieved. Just for a moment. Then he glanced at the clock, as if trying to measure how much time he had left before everything changed again. We met Laura in a small cafe on the east side of town. Neutral ground. Quiet. Private enough that no one would interrupt. I'd never been so nervous in my life, and I'd been through job interviews, courtroom adoptions, hospital waiting rooms. This was different. This was personal in a way nothing else had ever been. We arrived early. Michael wore a button-up shirt he hadn't touched in over a year. He kept fidgeting with the sleeves. Sarah brushed imaginary lint off his collar, trying not to tear up. When Laura walked in, I knew immediately who she was. The resemblance was striking. Same eyes. Same brow. Same quiet intensity. She paused when she saw him, then walked forward, slowly, like she was afraid the moment might break if she moved too fast. "Michael," she said. He nodded. She didn't try to hug him. She just stood there, her hands clenched in front of her like she was holding herself back from falling apart. I don't even know what to say," she said, voice trembling. Michael spoke first. "Why now?" Her eyes filled instantly. "I looked for you for years. The adoption was closed. I wasn't allowed to know where you were. I didn't want to give you up, but I was 17. My parents," she shook her head. "I wasn't strong enough back then. I thought I was doing the right thing." Michael sat quietly, absorbing every word. "I found your name online last month," she continued. "I wasn't sure if I should reach out. But I couldn't not try." Michael's voice was calm, but tight. "I don't remember you." "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "That's my fault. And I'll carry that forever. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to see you once, hear your voice, know that you're okay." He looked down, then at us, then back at her. "I'm okay," he said quietly. "They took care of me." She nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I can see that." The meeting lasted nearly 2 hours. They talked about books, music, school, everything but the gap between them, those 13 long years. It wasn't warm, exactly, but it wasn't cold either. It was cautious, like walking across a frozen lake and not being sure how thick the ice is. When we got home, Michael went straight to his room. He didn't talk much that night. Sarah cried silently in the bathroom, and I stood in the hallway listening to both of them, my wife's sobs and my son's silence, and wondered how love could be so heavy and so fragile at the same time. Something changed after that first meeting. I could feel it, even if I couldn't explain it. Michael had always been a thoughtful, quiet kid, but now he was quieter. Not in a bad way, he wasn't shutting down, but he was somewhere else, mentally, like his mind had been cracked open and now there was too much light getting in at once. I found him the next morning in the garage, sitting in the driver's seat of my old truck. Engine off, radio playing soft jazz through the speakers. He used to hate jazz. Said it sounded like homework. But there he was, eyes closed, tapping the steering wheel like he was trying to hold time in his hands. "You okay?" I asked, leaning against the hood. "Yeah," he said without opening his eyes. "Just thinking. Want company?" He shrugged, which was Michael's way of saying yes. I climbed into the passenger seat and waited. After a while, he said, "She smelled like lavender." I didn't know what to do with that. "Didn't expect that," he continued. "It's weird. You picture someone for so long and then they show up and they're real and they smell like lavender." There was a long pause. "I dreamed about her last night," he said. I turned slightly to look at him. She was sitting on the edge of my bed, reading me a story. I don't know what the book was, but it felt familiar. I think it was made up. My brain just filled in the blanks. I didn't know what to say. Part of me was heartbroken. The other part, terrified. "You think about her a lot?" I asked. He nodded. "Not all the time. But yeah. Growing up, I used to make up stories about her. That she was a spy, or a secret queen, or sick and couldn't come back. I think I just needed to believe there was a reason." "There was a reason," I said firmly. "You were in danger. They told us." I know, he cut in. I know. I'm not trying to rewrite anything. I just. He trailed off. I don't want to hurt you guys, he finally said. But I want to know where I come from. Those words lodged themselves in my chest. He wasn't accusing us. He wasn't angry. But I could feel it, that slow drift. Not away from us exactly, but toward something we couldn't compete with, origin. And I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit until then. I was jealous. Jealous of a woman who hadn't raised him, who had vanished from his life, but who now had a power I never could. She was where he came from. She was the beginning of his story. Sarah, meanwhile, was taking it harder than either of us expected. She tried to hide it, but I saw the way she flinched every time his phone buzzed. I saw her peeking through the blinds when he left the house. Once, I caught her in his room while he was out, sitting on his bed with one of his baby photos in her lap. She's trying to be his mother, she whispered when I walked in. She's not, I said gently. She's trying, Sarah repeated. And he's letting her. I sat beside her. Maybe he needs both, I said. But he has us, she snapped, then caught herself. He had us. We were enough. We are enough, I said. We're his family. That hasn't changed. But even as I said it, I could feel the fault lines widening beneath us. A week later, Michael asked if we could have dinner with Laura. Not just him and her. All of us. Together. Sarah's face went still. She blinked slowly, like she hadn't heard him correctly. You want us all to sit down together, she asked. Yeah, he said. I want her to know you. And I want you to know her. Sarah looked at me, but I didn't know what to say either. Part of me admired him, how grown-up he sounded, how brave he was being. But another part of me just wanted to grab him and say, no. She's not part of this. She doesn't get to be. Sarah finally nodded, stiffly. Okay. Michael smiled. And I realized that no matter how complicated it all was, what he really wanted was peace. We met at a quiet restaurant on the edge of town. Candlelight, cloth napkins, the kind of place where people go to propose or reconcile. Laura arrived first. She looked nervous, almost as much as we did. Michael walked in between us like a diplomat at a summit. The beginning was awkward. Small talk, forced smiles, tense laughter. Then Michael, bless him, broke the tension by ordering dessert before the main course. It's my birthday week, he said. I'm allowed to eat cake first. Laura laughed. And to my surprise, so did Sarah. And for a few minutes, it felt okay. Not perfect, not normal, but okay. Laura talked about her life. She was a nurse, had never married, never had more children. She spoke carefully, like someone walking on glass, always mindful not to offend. Sarah was polite. Cool, but polite. I stayed mostly quiet. Watching. Measuring. Trying to figure out if this woman, this stranger, was truly who she claimed to be, or if she was hiding something. After dessert, Michael excused himself to take a call. Just like that, it was just the three of us. Laura looked at us then, really looked, and said, "Thank you for loving him. For raising him right." Sarah didn't answer right away. "You missed a lot," she said finally. First steps. First words. Chicken pox. Nightmares. Music lessons. Heartbreaks. "I know," Laura said, her voice cracking. "I live with that every day." There was a long silence. "I'm not here to replace anyone," Laura continued. "I couldn't, even if I wanted to. You're his mom. You always will be." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. She blinked them back fiercely. But something in her face shifted. Just slightly. "He's a good boy," she said softly. "Yes," Laura replied. "Because of you." When we got home that night, Sarah didn't say much. She went upstairs and turned on the bath. I stayed in the kitchen, alone. Thinking. The woman I'd feared for weeks, the one who had shaken the ground beneath our family, she wasn't a villain. She was just a mother. And now, somehow, we both were. At first, it was just texts. A thank you for dinner. Hope you got home safe. Then came the longer messages, questions about his childhood, what he liked in school, did he still draw? He did. I didn't even know that until she asked. Within a week, they were texting daily. Then she started picking him up after his shift at the coffee shop, or meeting him for lunch on campus. Sometimes, he'd come home later than usual, smelling like her perfume, lavender and something else I couldn't name. Once, I saw him with a new jacket. He told me he bought it with his own money, but the tag was still inside, and it read, "To Michael. Love, Mom." Mom. That word sat in my chest like a stone. He didn't call her that to us. Not yet. But I could tell it was hovering just behind his lips, waiting for the right moment. Or the wrong one. Sarah noticed, too. She didn't say much, but I could feel the weight of it between us. The way she folded his laundry a little more roughly. The silence at dinner when he talked about something Laura said. The way she flinched whenever her phone buzzed and it wasn't him. "He's drifting," she said one night as we lay in bed, the ceiling fan clicking softly above us. "He's slipping right through our fingers." "He's 18, I replied, though it felt like a hollow excuse. "He's finding himself." She turned toward me, her eyes wet. "I thought we already found him." I didn't know how to answer. Maybe we had. But now, he was searching again, this time in the past. A few days later, I came home early from work. Michael's car was in the driveway, so I expected him to be inside, maybe raiding the fridge or playing guitar. But the house was quiet. I walked upstairs and heard faint voices from his room. The door was open a crack. "I don't know," he was saying. "It's hard. They're trying, but sometimes I feel like I'm disappointing them just by being curious." I froze. Laura's voice was soft on the other end of the phone. I couldn't hear everything she said, but I caught a few words: natural to wonder, not wrong to want more, doesn't mean you love them less. He sighed. "I just wish it didn't feel like cheating." That was it. That word, cheating. It cut deeper than I expected. Because that's exactly what it felt like. Like he was living a double life, and we were the ones being left out of the secret. I backed away before he noticed I was there, but the echo of that word followed me down the stairs, into the garage, into my chest. I sat in my truck and stared at the steering wheel for what felt like hours. I wasn't angry. Not really. Just lost. That weekend, we had our traditional Sunday breakfast: pancakes, eggs, too much coffee. Something we'd done since he was 7. A ritual, a comfort. But even rituals crack when the foundation starts to shift. He was quieter than usual. Distracted. Midway through breakfast, Sarah asked him if he wanted to go with us to visit her sister next weekend. "I can't," he said, not even looking up. I already made plans. "With Laura?" she asked. "Yeah," he said. "We're going to the botanical gardens. She used to take pictures there when she was a kid. She wants to show me." There was a beat of silence. Sarah put her fork down. "Maybe we could all go." Michael hesitated. "I think it's kind of a her and me thing." Another pause. "She's really getting into every part of your life, huh?" Sarah said, trying to smile. But her voice cracked, just a little. Michael looked up. "She's just trying to connect." "She missed 18 years, I said quietly. "That's a lot of connecting to cram into a few weekends." He bristled. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," Sarah said gently, "that it feels like you're pulling away. From us." He sighed and leaned back in his chair. "I'm not pulling away. I'm just opening another door. I'm still here." "But are you?" she asked. "Because lately, it feels like you're somewhere else." His face flushed. "So what? I'm not allowed to know her. To understand where I came from." "That's not what we're saying," I said, trying to mediate, even as my heart thudded like a war drum. "We just don't want to lose you in the process." "You're not losing me," he said sharply. "But maybe I'm not just yours anymore. Maybe I never was." That hit like a punch. Sarah stood up and left the table. Her chair scraped hard against the floor. Michael stared down at his plate, suddenly ashamed. I could see it. I didn't mean it like that, he mumbled. I know, I said quietly. But we raised you. We love you. We're not just some phase you pass through on the way to something more authentic. He nodded slowly. I just don't want to have to choose. You don't, I said. But we need to know there's still space for us. That we're not being edited out of the story. He looked up at me. You'll always be in my story. And I believed him. But it didn't erase the fear that maybe we were no longer the main characters. That night, Sarah sat on the couch, staring at a photo album. Michael's second birthday. His first lost tooth. That trip to the mountains where he got scared by a raccoon and insisted on sleeping between us for the rest of the weekend. You think he'll forget all this? She asked. No, I said. But he might not remember it the same way we do. She closed the album. I feel like I'm mourning something that hasn't even happened yet. I sat beside her. Held her hand. And for the first time since the letter arrived, I let myself cry. Not because I was angry. Not even because I was scared. But because I knew, deep in my bones, that love doesn't always come with guarantees. Sometimes, it comes with choices. And sometimes, it asks you to stand still while the person you raised walks into a room full of memories you'll never be part of. The next few weeks were delicate. Like walking on glass that never stopped cracking beneath your feet. We didn't fight. Not exactly. But we didn't laugh either. And that was worse. Michael still came home for dinner most nights. He was polite, helped clean up, asked about our day. But it felt rehearsed, like a scene from a play he didn't want to star in anymore. The real show, it seemed, was happening elsewhere. One night, I went to refill the gas in my truck and ended up driving aimlessly for over an hour. I didn't even know where I was going. I just drove. It's funny how being in motion can feel like control, even when you're lost. When I got home, the house was dark except for Michael's room. A sliver of light spilled into the hallway. His door was cracked open. I walked past, then stopped. Inside, he was sitting cross-legged on his bed, laptop in front of him, speaking into a webcam. I was about to knock, just a quick good night, when I heard her voice. Laura. And then I found this box of old drawings you made, she was saying, smiling through the screen. I kept them all. Even the ones you scribbled on napkins. I used to tell myself, someday, I'd show them to you. Michael's face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in weeks. You still have them? He asked. She held up a stack of yellowed papers, edges curled from time. Crayons. Stick figures. One of them looked like a sun with legs. He laughed, a real laugh. I felt something in my chest tighten. Not jealousy this time. Something worse. I felt like a visitor in my own son's life. I backed away, quietly, and stood in the hallway for a long time, just staring at the framed family photo from when he was 10. We looked so solid in that picture. So sure. I wondered if he still felt that way. A few days later, I got a call from Laura. That was a first. I was at work, distracted, trying to focus on payroll numbers when my phone buzzed. Her name lit up the screen like a dare. I stepped outside to take it. Hello. Hi. I hope it's okay I'm calling, she said quickly. I wasn't sure if I should. I waited. I just wanted to say thank you. For everything. You've said that before, I replied. Several times. I know. But I needed to say it again. There was a pause. Is something wrong? I asked. She hesitated. I didn't want to do this over the phone. But I don't want to hide it either. I told Michael the truth. About why he was taken from me. My heart thudded once, hard. What truth? She took a deep breath. It wasn't just that I was young. Or that my parents pressured me. It's complicated. I felt a cold sweat on my neck. You told us you were forced, I said. I was, she said, voice breaking. But not in the way you think. Silence. I had a breakdown. Postpartum psychosis. I didn't hurt him, but I scared him. There was a night, I didn't sleep for days, and I thought someone was coming for us. I locked us in the closet and wouldn't come out. He cried. The neighbors heard. CPS got involved. After that, they said I was unstable. My mouth went dry. You never told the agency. They sealed the records. Mental health wasn't something they liked to talk about back then. I was 17. No one advocated for me. And now. I've been stable for years. Therapy. Medication. A clean record. But I needed Michael to know. I didn't want him to think I just gave up on him. I leaned against the wall, dizzy. You should have told us. I know, she whispered. But I was afraid you'd cut him off. And I couldn't lose him again. There it was. The secret. The truth. The ghost in the room that had been whispering through every conversation. Not a monster. Not a liar. Just a deeply broken person trying to rebuild something fragile. But still, she had lied by omission. She had taken that choice away from us. And now, Michael knew something we didn't. That evening, Sarah and I sat him down. I want to ask you something, I said, trying to sound calm. He looked up from his phone. Okay. Did your mother tell you anything important recently? He stiffened slightly. Yeah. She told you what happened back then? He nodded. She didn't mean to hide it. She was scared. She should have told us, Sarah said, her voice shaking. That's not just her story to control. She thought you'd shut her out, he said. And maybe she was right. I stared at him. Do you believe her? I asked. Yes, he said without hesitation. Because she's been honest about everything else. And because I've seen how she is now. Sarah stood. She couldn't take it. She walked out, her hand covering her mouth. Michael looked at me. I know this hurts. But I'm not choosing sides. Then what are you choosing? I asked quietly. I'm choosing to know who I am. The next day, Sarah didn't go to work. She stayed in bed. Curtains drawn. I brought her coffee, but she barely touched it. I don't know who I am anymore, she said softly. You're his mother. Not the only one. I didn't argue. Because she was right. Whether we liked it or not. That weekend, something unexpected happened. Michael invited us to dinner. He cooked. Set the table. Even lit candles like it was Thanksgiving. We were cautious, uncertain. After we ate, he cleared his throat. I want to tell you something, he said. We waited. I've been offered a scholarship, he said. Out of state. University of Oregon. Sarah blinked. You didn't apply there. I did. Quietly. I needed to see if I could get in. I swallowed. Why Oregon? He looked down. Because she lives there. Laura. That's where she moved back after I turned 5. Silence. But I'm not going there for her, he added quickly. I'm going for me. Because I need space. To figure out who I am without everyone's expectations. Sarah's face crumpled. When? Next semester, he said. If I accept. He looked at us, pleading, not defiant. I love you. I always will. But I need this. I nodded slowly. My heart breaking, but something deeper, understanding. Sometimes, loving someone means letting them walk away. Not because you failed them, but because you helped them grow strong enough to leave. I didn't sleep the night he told us. Not really. I just lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above our bed. It groaned every time it rotated, like it had something to say but couldn't find the words. I knew the feeling. Sarah had cried herself to sleep beside me. I could hear the tremble in her breath every now and then, even in her dreams. He was leaving. Our boy. The one we'd waited for. Fought for. Raised. Protected. He was going away, not just to college, but towards something we couldn't be part of. Something that, in a way, would always exist without us. In the silence, I kept picturing him at 5 years old, his tiny hand wrapped around mine at the zoo, asking if giraffes ever got lonely. I'd told him, not if they have each other. And now? He had someone else. The next morning, the house felt like it was underwater. Muffled sounds, everything slow, like grief had seeped into the drywall. I came downstairs and found Sarah sitting at the kitchen table, still in her robe, the letter from Laura open beside her. She wasn't reading it anymore, just staring through it, like she was trying to see something hidden between the lines. "He's really going," she said quietly. I didn't say anything. We spent 18 years giving him everything we had. And now he's leaving, because of her. I sat across from her. He's not leaving because of her. She looked up at me sharply. I mean it, I said. He's going because he needs to know who he is. He's not running away from us, he's running toward something he doesn't understand yet. I don't want him to be like her, she said. Unstable. Scared. Lost. He's not, I replied. He's more grounded than either of us were at his age. She wiped a tear from her cheek. But what if he forgets us? That broke me. That fear. He won't, I said. But we have to let him remember us in his own way. Later that week, I asked Michael if we could talk. Just him and me. We went for a walk, something we used to do a lot when he was little. Back then, he'd pick up rocks and sticks like they were treasures. Now he had his phone in one hand and his keys in the other. But he still walked beside me. That was something. You know, I started, when we first brought you home, I used to stay up at night just listening to you breathe. He smiled faintly. That's kind of creepy, Dad. I laughed. Probably. But I was terrified. I didn't know how to be a father. I didn't know if I'd do it right. You did, he said, almost instantly. I looked at him. Did I? He nodded. You still are. We walked in silence for a while. Are you scared? I asked. About moving, he said. A little. But not really. Because of her? He looked thoughtful. No. Because of me. I waited. I've been trying to figure out how to fit both of you in my life, he said. And for a while, I thought I had to choose. That's why I was pulling away. But I don't think it's about choosing anymore. I looked at him carefully. Then what is it about? Integration, he said. Figuring out how to take all the pieces and make them make sense. He stopped walking. I don't want you to think you're being replaced. Because you're not. You're the reason I'm even able to do this, to ask questions, to be curious. You gave me that freedom. My throat tightened. But I need to know where I come from, he added. So I can decide where I'm going. I nodded slowly. I get it, I said. It hurts like hell, but I get it. He looked down. I'm sorry if I made it harder than it had to be. You didn't, I said. You just made it real. A week later, we packed his car. Boxes of books. A guitar. His backpack, worn at the edges. The jacket Laura had given him, folded neatly in the back seat. Sarah made sandwiches. She tried to be cheerful, but I caught her in the laundry room just before we left, holding one of his old baby blankets. She was crying so quietly I almost didn't notice. I'm okay, she said when she saw me. I didn't say anything. I just walked over and hugged her. Tighter than I had in weeks. Out on the driveway, Michael looked ready. Nervous, yes. But focused. He hugged his mom for a long time. She didn't let go until he whispered something into her ear. I never found out what it was, but whatever he said, it made her smile through her tears. He turned to me. Hugged me just as tight. Thank you, he said. For giving me a life worth asking questions about. My heart broke and healed all at once. You call us, I said. Every week. He grinned. Every Sunday. Pancake hour. We waved as he drove off, the car shrinking in the distance until it turned the corner and disappeared. Just like that, the house was quiet again. But not empty. That night, Sarah and I opened a bottle of wine. Not to celebrate. Just to mark the change. We sat on the back porch, listening to the crickets. The sky was clear, stars sharp against the dark. "Do you think he'll come back?" Sarah asked. I thought about it. "Yes," I said. "But not as the same person." She nodded slowly. "I just hope he comes back whole." I reached for her hand. "He will. Because we gave him something strong to leave from." She squeezed my fingers. For the first time in weeks, there was a sense of peace. Not because everything had resolved, but because we had finally stopped resisting the change. We had surrendered. And in that surrender, we found clarity. He was our son. He would always be our son. But now, he was also something more. His own person. And that, perhaps, was the greatest act of parenting, letting go. Exactly 6 months after Michael left, we received an invitation. Not a text. Not an email. A real, physical envelope, thick cream-colored cardstock with a wax seal. I opened it at the kitchen table while Sarah was making coffee. She looked up as I read it, and I didn't speak right away. I just handed it to her, letting her see for herself. "You are invited to a small gathering in celebration of Michael James Thompson. For his 19th birthday. Hosted by Laura Bennett. Saturday, 4 p.m. Portland, Oregon." Sarah read it twice, then looked at me. "She's hosting his birthday party?" I nodded. Sarah set the invitation down with trembling fingers. "Do you think he wants us there?" I don't think he'd have let her send it if he didn't. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, "I don't know if I can see her again." I reached across the table and touched her hand. "We're not going for her. We're going for him." She didn't answer. But she didn't say no. The flight was quiet. Sarah stared out the window most of the time, her thumb brushing the ring on her finger in small, nervous circles. I kept replaying every possible version of the encounter in my head: how Michael would look, how Laura would act, what it would feel like to be strangers in a house built around our own son. We rented a car. Followed the GPS through winding Oregon streets. When we pulled up to Laura's house, my stomach tightened. It was a modest home. Older. Well kept. There were potted plants on the steps and children's chalk drawings still faintly visible on the sidewalk. It looked lived in. Loved. Michael was waiting at the front door. He smiled when he saw us and ran down the steps like he was 10 years old again, like no time had passed at all. He hugged Sarah first, wrapping his arms around her so tightly I thought she might cry on the spot. "I missed you," he whispered. Then he hugged me. I closed my eyes, letting the moment anchor me. "You look older," I said. He laughed. "College does that." He led us inside. The house was filled with soft music and warm smells: vanilla, cinnamon, baked apples. People mingled in small groups, laughing, sipping cider, passing plates of food. Laura stood in the kitchen. When she saw us, she froze for just a second. Then she smiled and walked over. "Hi," she said, her voice softer than I remembered. Sarah nodded politely. Laura turned to me. "Thank you for coming." I hesitated, then extended my hand. "For him," I said. "Always for him." She looked relieved. And in that moment, something shifted. Not quite peace. But maybe, a truce. Michael gave a short speech before cake. He stood at the center of the living room, holding a cup of sparkling cider, smiling with just a hint of nerves. "I've been thinking a lot about the word home," he said. "How it's not just one place. Or one person. Or even one version of yourself." People around the room nodded quietly. I used to think I had to choose. That I was a product of either my past or my present. But I've come to realize I'm both. He looked at us. At 5 years old, I was given a second chance. A new life. A home. 2 people who took in a scared kid and showed him what love actually means. He looked over at Laura. And now, I've been given something else. A history. Answers. connection, and a chance to see where I came from, without guilt. He paused, breathing deeply. To my parents, he emphasized, thank you. For everything. For giving me the courage to ask hard questions and the safety to come back with answers. Sarah wiped her eyes. I wasn't far behind. And to Laura, thank you for showing up. For being honest. For meeting me where I am, not where I used to be. He raised his glass. To all of it. Everyone clapped. Sarah stood up and hugged him again. This time, she didn't let go right away. Later that evening, I found myself sitting on the back porch alone. The air was cool. Crisp. Oregon in autumn smelled like earth and pine and beginnings. Laura joined me a few minutes later, holding 2 mugs of coffee. She offered me one. I took it. He's happy, I said. She nodded. He is. We sat in silence for a while. I used to dream about him, she said. The first few years after they took him. I thought I'd never see him again. I didn't think I deserved to. You were sick, I said. You got help. That matters. She looked at me, surprised. I hated you, you know, I added. When your letter came, I wanted to burn it. I know, she said. And I would have understood if you had. We stared out into the dark yard, where wind rustled through trees and distant laughter floated from the house. He still calls us Mom and Dad, I said. That means more than anything. She nodded. It should. There was another long pause. I'm not trying to erase you, she said quietly. I know, I said. You're just part of the story now. She smiled. We both are. And for the first time, I believed her. We left the next morning. Michael hugged us goodbye at the airport. He looked different in the daylight, older, more settled. Sarah held his face in her hands. You come home soon. I will, he said. And next time, I'll bring both of you here. I laughed. That's a lot of parents in one place. Yeah, he said, grinning. But I think we can handle it. We watched him walk back through the doors of the airport terminal, his backpack slung over one shoulder, a new life waiting just beyond the glass. And we drove home. Not with sadness. But with something else. Wholeness. People always talk about love like it's a single thing, a straight line from one heart to another. But I've learned it's not like that. Love is messy. It shifts, expands, breaks, rebuilds. It includes people you never expected and truths you don't always want. But in the end, love doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for presence. And we were there. Through it all.